If you follow graphically Alex, you know that he believes very strongly the condition in which you overconsume for psychological reasons, obsessing over what you look like should be considered a core part of it, that it's not just an incidental thing that happens as a result of it later on, that it's part of the coping mechanism, that people choose to obsess in the same way that people with the other toxic ritualistic types of these eds. The DSM-IV includes bed with full criteria. It's just based purely on the behavior with consumption, unlike with AN, with the ANAs. One of the core criteria is still the overvaluation of weight or shape, how you look or how much you weigh on the scale. They have recently changed it for AN as well. Criterion B under the DSM-IV was intense fear of gaining weight or becoming obese even though underweight. Under DSM-V, that same criterion is now intense fear of becoming fat or persistent behavior that interferes with weight gain. Because so many people with AN were denying that they had any obsession with their shape or weight.
Everyone always associates this illness with wanting to be thin, but for me it wasn't anything about that. I didn't care about how I looked, I didn't care how thin I was. It was all about just having something to control. So I became obsessed with calories. You could pretty much just name a food and I'll be able to give you the calorie content of it. It started to spiral into this almost like addiction of restriction.
But really, what's happened there with that criterion is that they were not believed. It was, well, if you're persistently interfering with weight gain, I'm going to assume that you do, even though you're not telling me that you do care about what you look like. That's the reasoning that that criterion was changed. I'm not saying they're telling the truth or not, or whatever. I'm not having an opinion on that. All I'm saying is, by the same logic, you should treat these conditions the same, and yet they're not treated the same. Bed, it does not even mention overvaluation of weight or shape, whereas AN does. And people with AN have been saying for a long time that they want that thing removed completely. They want it only as a specifier to specify type of AN. That's why I find it so interesting that in this study they conclude the bed clinical overvaluation group had significantly higher levels of specific ED psychopathology than the three other groups, which did not differ significantly from each other. Findings suggest that overvaluation of shape and weight should not be considered as a required criterion for bed, because this would exclude a substantial proportion of bed patients with clinically significant problems. Rather, overvaluation of shape and weight warrants consideration either as a diagnostic specifier, so you can have like a subtype that has it and a subtype that doesn't, or as a dimensional severity rating. They're just treated differently in the criteria, despite the fact that there are people in both groups who deny when you ask them that they do care about it.